You know the dangers.
I do.
This is a serious undertaking. It's not fucking astral projection or runes. This is real stuff we're playing with. Real angels, real demons.
I know this.
You read cunts on the internet saying it's just mental states, that you're guardian angels, your higher self. Psychobabble bollocks. So you'll go for days without sleep, fasting, back-breaking rites, ritual sex. You'll be at the very edge. You ready for all that, darling?
I am. I've read up on the Kabbalah.
You don't think this is a tree of Sephiroth, because it's not? You've been looking shit up on the internet. This is Gnosticism.
I was told it was based on the Kabbalah.
It's there as grammar, a structure. The Kabbalah is an exploration of God. We're doing something much darker.
That clip was from the recently released movie Dark Song, and thanks Jason for bringing it to my attention. As the male protagonist, whose name is Solomon, tells the heroine, whose name is Sophia, Gnosticism is far more dangerous than Kabbalah or any other form of magic. Why? Because it gets you closer to the truth than any other occultism or ideology. It takes you to places even gods fear to tread. It's the ultimate red pill and soul orgasm and hipster Orphic quest. Dangerous truth certainly seems to be the way for those who join me, Abraxas, in his meat space incarnation of Miguel Connor, once again at Aeon Bite Gnostic Radio, broadcast from the virtual Alexandria, that state of mind where East meets West, always through the God Above God.cam. And it certainly seems the truth is dangerous on this late May, the year of our demiurge 2017, as it's now 11 years since I started this dark odyssey on the seas of fate through the gnashing rocks of orthodoxy, back when it was called Coffee, Cigarettes, and Gnosis. I don't even want to celebrate it officially, since it's been so long, although it's only the last 4 years that I really took it seriously as a multimedia jihad against what is counterfeit and average. It seems so long ago since that spring of 2006 when I had that first taste of Gnosis in between reading the Nag Hammadi Library and Philip K. Dick, watching Donnie Darko, in an ayahuasca ceremony where I encountered Abraxas in an astral flight. And then this podcast was given birth.
Why, oh why didn't I take the blue pill?
Since then, I swear it's been a sort of Book of Job meets David Lynch narrative for me, as I've lost half of my family, succumbed to mental and health disasters, underwent financial cataclysm that still haven't fully ended, and almost lost 2 of my children. It's almost like the Archons noticed and made me pay, just as they do all others who wake up to the reality of this prison planet.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
The world since I started this venture has gotten much weirder, I'm sure you'll agree. A Philip K. Dick world, if you would, as Michael Moorcock and Tessa Dick said. But that means the Gnostic sensibility is growing as more and more people see through the hologram of the Empire. Some Kabbalists say that this is the worst possible world where hope can exist, although it does seem hopeless these days. And I'm sure many of you feel that way. Yet in a time when hope dies, it just means imagination must live. And that has always been the Gnostic promise. Like Tobias Churton wrote, Gnosis is the religion of the artist, and the artist is simply man doing what man does best, being a joyful co-creator, manifesting light in the dark universe.
There's all kinds of ghettos in the world.
It's all one ghetto, man. Giant gutter in outer space.
Sure, the Kali Yuga may be ending, but as Jordan Peterson said recently, the chaos god Kek has arrived from the swamps of myth, and chaos is everywhere. But in chaos, in these endless underworlds that have risen to the surface of the collective consciousness, is where lies great opportunity to unleash those hidden archetypes. And Jung did say archetypes are quasi-independent. So we make them our allies in the fight against the Church of Outer Darkness Grant Morrison wrote about.
You cannot play God, then wash your hands of the things that you've created. Sooner or later, the day comes when you can't hide from the things that you've done anymore.
And here we are together. So glad you're here with me, and I still stand. So grateful to be your humble Pied Piper at the gates of dawn and midwifer of contraband truths, dangerous truths. I hope I have served you well in your journey to find that pearl of great price that is your authentic self, guarded by the monster serpent that is nothing more than a construct of bankers and hating angels and those children that teased you. I hope so. And we continue, oh you true seeker warriors and spiritual entrepreneurs and lords of deconstruction and word made on flesh and modern day Tom Sawyers and just very cool cats, many whom I am honored to call friends. Thank you. 11 years, and I wonder if this is our 11th hour. Thank you, regardless.
Yes, these are bruises from fighting. Yes, I'm comfortable with that. I am enlightened.
Let's talk about Freemasonry, shall we? It's been a while, and variety is the spice of Gnosis. We have the infernal pleasure of being joined by Darren Lorente Bull to discuss his book, More Light, Today's Freemasonry for Men and Women. We'll be discussing this, siblinghood instead of brotherhood, as well as other intriguing topics like the origins of Freemasonry, and can Freemasonry deliver that experience in a world being teabagged by both secular dogmatism and fundy godsplaining. My money is on the experience, of course, as hope dies and imagination rises, because, in the end, the best we can do is write our own gospel and live our own myth. Darren will get us closer.
You know, the Templars and the Freemasons believed that the treasure was too great for any one man to have, not even a king. That's why they went to such lengths to keep it hidden.
That's right. The Founding Fathers believed the same thing about government. I figure their solution will work for the treasure too.
Give it to the people.
Enjoy the interview, and for members, you'll get the second part. Please become a member for a mere $5.99 a month, and you'll not only get complete episodes, but other bonus content, like access to more than 350 shows, and being invited to our Inner Sanctum of Gnosis Facebook group. To be honest, I wish I could just give it to you all, but one side effect in the last decade is that costs continue to rise, and to survive this red pill cafeteria needs support. Nobody's getting rich, and funds basically keep the lights of the pleroma on. And thanks to my producer Vance and webmaster Luthien for all the work you do for the virtual Alexandria, as well as others with your assistance and sage advice.
We live, we fight, and we die for each other.
Of course, if becoming a member isn't your cup of hemlock, please support via Patreon, PayPal, the US Mail, buying me books like Voices of Gnosticism, Other Voices of Gnosticism, or The Executioner's Daughter. We are truly building a community of heretics, mystics, and madmen here at the virtual Alexandria. And we all need to hang together, or we'll hang separately, as Benjamin Franklin said before the American Revolution. This is a revolution, the revolution of the spirit and the mind, where, after an ayahuasca dream, I pledged to make sure Hypatia of Alexandria would make it home this time, in a converging parallel universe, escaping the mobs of complacency and materialism.
You're convinced that God is dead because there's evil in the world.
Correct.
Then why don't you think he's alive because of the goodness in the world?
What goodness?
Everywhere, in man.
You're committable.
If we're nothing but atoms, molecular structures no different in kind from this desk or that pen, then we ought to always be rushing irresistibly blindly toward serving our own selfish ends. So how is it that there is love in this world? I mean love as a God might love. And a man will give his life for another.
Imagination is your greatest weapon for all of this to happen. Like Colin Wilson wrote, imagination should be not to escape reality, but to create it. And as Alan Moore said, very much in line with the ethos of the show, I believe that magic is art, and that art, whether that be music, writing, sculpture, or any other form, is literally magic. Art is, like magic, the science of manipulating symbols, words, or images to achieve changes in consciousness. Indeed, to cast a spell is simply to spell, to manipulate words, to change people's consciousness. And this is why I believe that an artist or writer is the closest thing in the contemporary world to a shaman. Let's create better than the creator gods. Let's make the world more interesting. Let's be shamans. And led us to the interview with Darren on his book, appropriately titled after 11 years of Aeon by Gnostic Radio, More Light. Oh, and Captain Janeway, do you have any advice against the Archons in these times of chaos?
You're an alien. You've created all these hallucinations, haven't you?
This is what my species does. At the moment just before death, one of us comes to help you understand what's happening, to make the crossing over an occasion of joy.
And what is that?
Our matrix, where your consciousness will live. I was being truthful when I said it was a place of wonder. It can be whatever you want it to be.
Then why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Why pretend to be my father?
Usually people are comforted to see their loved ones. It makes the crossing over a much less fearful occasion. I've done this many times, but I've never encountered someone so resistant.
My people are telling me to fight. They're trying to save me.
They're trying out of desperation. It's hopeless.
You're the one who sounds desperate. I don't get the feeling you're trying to make me comfortable. You're only interested in my agreeing to come with you.
Because it's inevitable.
And you don't strike me as any kind of good Samaritan. You're more like a vulture, preying on people at the moment of their death when they're most vulnerable.
I've waited for you. I've been patient.
But your patience is wearing thin. What's the real reason you want me in that matrix? Somehow I don't think it has anything to do with everlasting joy.
You must go with me.
If you could force me to go, you'd have done it already. You need me to agree, don't you? I have to go voluntarily.
Wouldn't that be better than standing here in this endless debate?
Let me tell you this. We can stand here for all eternity, and I will never choose to go with you.
You're in a dangerous profession, Captain. You face death every day. There'll be another time, and I'll be waiting. Eventually, you'll come into my matrix. And you will nourish me for a long, long time.
Go back to hell, coward.
This is the AM Byte interview, and with us we definitely have the pleasure of being joined by Darren Lorente Bull to discuss his new book, More Light, Today's Freemasonry for Men and Women. How are you doing today, Darren?
Very well, thank you, Miguel. Thanks very much for the gig. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you on. And with us as my wingman, we have the servant of Alethea, Vance Sachi. How are you doing today, Vance?
Very well, Miguel. Very well.
Glad to have the three of you, including myself. Now I'm talking about myself in the third person. This Abraxa shtick needs to go. But anyway, glad to have the two of you here. And Darren, why don't you tell us a bit about your spiritual hitchhiking and how you came into Freemasonry?
I suppose I wasn't your average kid, so I was sort of kid that was reading comics all day, and I didn't like football. I wasn't much into football or those sort of things. And reading comics, I then went into reading books. And as a teenager, I got a bit of an indigestion of Nietzsche and Freud and existentialism. So luckily, I got out of that, so I think I would have hanged myself by now if not. And I was looking for some meaning, really, something. I was just searching. For a time, I was very interested in Zen Buddhism. But my godfather, who was a great man, a really, really great man with a very unique personality, was a Freemason. And that always, struck a chord. And one day I just decided to walk into the headquarters of the United Grand Lodge of England in London Covent Garden and asked for admission, and that's really how it started, really.
And how exactly did you get connected with Droit Humain? I hope I'm not butchering that, but
no,
that was not they're obviously not traditional Freemasons.
No. I was originally in what's called regular Freemasonry, which is the mainstream. So in England, you've got the United Grand Lodge of England, and they have, I think, close to 7,000 lodges. In the States, you have many, many more. And regular Freemasonry only accepts males who believe in God, and they only accept one Masonic jurisdiction per country or per state or province, and don't acknowledge any other form of Freemasonry. But of course, there is another branch of Freemasonry, which is called liberal Freemasonry, which is composed of different orders that accept women, atheists, and who obviously accept the fact that there are more than one, there can be more than one Masonic jurisdiction in any given country or state or area, region. So I, over time, I became very interested in the fact that Le Droit Humain was it's an order that accepts men and women on an equal footing, and I thought that was very important. I think Freemasonry is a method for humanity as a whole, without any distinction. So that's what really got me interested. And also it's in English-speaking countries like the UK and the US, I believe, and Australia and other countries, Le Droit Humain is deeply esoteric, and because it was founded by theosophists in England, famously by Annie Besant. So all these different things was really what took me to Le Droit Humain. So I resigned from regular Freemasonry because, of course, it both are incompatible, and I joined Le Droit Humain.
Well, before we get into the history, and I'll let Vance weigh in, tell us about your co-author and why you guys decided to write More Light.
Well, Julian had been in, and he was also in regular Freemasonry for 40 years, and he's written a number of books on Freemasonry. Quite particularly because he writes from a spiritual and esoteric point of view. I mean, most books on Freemasonry are either on the history of Freemasonry or on the symbols and the meaning of the symbols. Great books, of course, but Julian's always focused on the spiritual side. What's Freemasonry and how can it help me, transform my life, or help me, think differently. And he also joined the Le Droit Humain, and when we both were in this new order, we realized that there was absolutely no literature whatsoever on not only Le Droit Humain, but on liberal Freemasonry in England. I mean, in English-speaking countries, there is just nothing. All the books are written by regular Freemasons, which are, that's very, very good books, but they've only got that perspective. There was nothing from our perspective. So we thought it was time to write the book that touched upon that subject, but also that would, we wanted to make it accessible. So, I mean, Freemasons are a very complex subject, so we wanted to make it accessible and hopefully easy to read, for any reader, anybody that has an interest in the subject, Masons and non-Masons alike. And also we wanted to talk about liberal Freemasonry. That there is another branch of Freemasonry that's, I think, unknown in English-speaking countries. On the European continent, they are, quite prominent, but not so over here.
I certainly enjoyed your book. I thought it was very approachable, but what do you think, Vance? What do you have to say?
Well, I think it's a very fascinating topic, Miguel, and Darren, I'm glad to make your acquaintance. I was wondering, are the experiences of the mysteries in Freemasonry deeper for non-atheists? In other words, are atheists missing out on some of the depth, or do you think that atheists and other, non-atheistic people get an equal experience of Freemasonry?
I think it's it will be different, but I think there's no demerit in being an atheist. I think that Freemasonry provides, at least for me and for most of the members of the order I belong to, a secular form of spirituality. So and even for those Freemasons who are atheists, there's still some sort of belief in an order or in an overriding order or desire for meaning. So, but you'll tend to find that the atheist Freemasons are more common on the European continent, where liberal Freemasonry has more to do with the 18th century philosophy of humanism and the Age of Enlightenment. So they will be more philosophical, more rationalistic, and more aiming towards that sort of approach. But no, I think that both atheists and and believers and of course believers in regular Freemasonry, it's normally official established religions. But in Le Droit Humain we've got people who are believe and have a faith, but they might be pagans or Wiccans, or they have whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. That doesn't come into it. So no, I think that everybody will have a similar experience, but of course it's very unique at the same time. It's quite difficult to explain.
Very interesting.
And Vance, I've never asked you, are you a Freemason? I know you've had some run-ins with the Church of Satan down in California, but what about Freemasons?
Well, just because my first wife ran away with them, I didn't have any exposure to them except for the guy who showed up in my apartment one day that was running away, taking my wife. But I have never been a Freemason, but my uncle was very high up in his lodge in New Jersey. That's about it. I worked with one on a TV show for a long time. He was the producer. He never really invited me in, but I didn't ask. So that's the story with me. But I've always been interested in it, and I followed a lot of things. I am a Rosicrucian, and the Rosicrucians claim, the Rosicrucians claim I'm inactive for many years. Maybe Darren can say something about Rosicrucians and Masons and the relationships between them.
Well, definitely. In Freemasonry, in the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, there's the 18th degree, which is called Prince Rose-Croix, and it's precisely about Rosicrucianism. There is definitely a link. One of the Rosicrucian manifestos of the 16th century, I'm not sure if it was the Fama Fraternitas or the Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz, talks about, it says, we have the Mason's word. I think that's a very small line in one of their manifestos. There is definitely a link between both. There's the free thinking. I think it's a form of esoteric Christianity. Or it has elements of esoteric Christianity and of alchemy, and I think all these different currents collide, definitely. And in Freemasonry, I think the 18th degree is really the one that most has the biggest influences from Rosicrucianism, definitely.
Before we get into some of the history, Darren, you address in your book, More Light, that Freemasonry can thrive in a secular age, especially when it seems you don't have to worry so much about secrets, at least not in Europe. So how can this happen? Are you saying basically is that you can get the same experience then a shaman in Russia or a Christian in the new type of esoteric Christian in Africa. You can have that spiritual consciousness expanding, again, experience, which a lot of people have accused Freemasonry of sort of leaving on the side of the road.
I think that, we live in and I don't know about yourself, but I think, this is a rat race for all of us. Any new ideas are quickly assimilated by the control mechanisms. We live like robots. I mean, on automatic mode most of the time. It's, work, family, society pressures, and I think that, we don't have, religion in a way has failed. Doesn't provide, it has divided people rather than unite them, and created lots of dogmas. And I think with Freemasonry, what we aim to do is, there's an answer to rhetorical questions that, will remain unanswered. Why we're here, what are we here for? I think it will take a long time for us humans to ever find the answers, but at least we should continue to ask these questions. And I think that nowadays, not many people are bothered about this. If we think about it, the vast majority of people seem to be, there's just no time or no interest, or, people are watching Big Brother or on the television, or, surfing the net or whatever. So I think it's, I think that's the, one of the goals of Freemasonry is that to just give us this space, which is the lodge, where we can actually try and be ourselves, learn how to be ourselves, and, leave aside for a few hours all the worries from day-to-day life, and leave, this rat race. And I think that the secret is the experience that we have. I don't think we're going to have the same sort of mystical experience as a shaman or a magician. But I think that we, it is definitely a Western, construct, Freemasonry. It's part of, the history of, Western societies. And I think that it's in our culture, in our DNA. It's a platform to other things. It makes you think, and there's lots of people that I know have gone into Freemasonry and have outside of Freemasonry taken different spiritual paths. It's a way where you can actually take five and think, and I think that's what we were trying to say, I think.
Yes, and so you would say that self-knowledge is very important to Freemasonry, that place where you can call it gnosis.
Yes, definitely, and definitely. And it has the similarities with Buddhism, and certainly with Gnosticism. And I don't know. There's obviously some underlying thread that, but yes, definitely, we're looking for that divine spark, and that divine spark for us in Freemasonry is the center. With a compass, which is one of our most famous symbols, you draw a circle, and of course, you use the point of the compass is in the center, and at the center is ourselves, trying to find, if we know who we are, we have a point of self-reference, we can then try to pretend, at least, to understand others around us and the world at large. It's important to know who we are before anything else. I think it's quite difficult to try and know what's around us if we don't know who we are. And it's a old worn cliche, which is quite trite, but the Oracle of Delphos, know thyself. And really that's the thing. That is the key. If we know who we are, where our limits lie, we can then try to understand what's around us and other people and different cultures, ideologies, and at the end of the day, Freemasonry does promote tolerance. We are very idealistic, I know, but that's really one of the most important byproducts of Freemasonry, I think, tolerance.
Yeah, I was bursting with this question because as you were saying that, what came to mind, and please, I don't want you to reveal any of the contents of the rituals, because I know that's, as you said in your book, something that would spoil the effect for people that are going into the order. But can you tell us which version of Jesus is represented in the Masonic rituals in the order? Is it the traditional synoptic Jesus? Is it more like the Jesus of the book of John? Or is it, if you're familiar with it, the Gnostic Jesus of, the Gospel of Thomas and things like that?
Well, the truth is, Vance, that there is no Jesus does not appear in any of our rituals. Who does appear in our rituals is Hiram Abiff, who's the architect that was employed by King Solomon to build the temple to God in the Old Testament, and that's the main sort of biblical legend that we employ. But there's no reference to Jesus. I mean, there might be. We're talking about the 18th degree, and and again, I'm not. I've only ever reached the 18th degree. I haven't gone any further. Perhaps in the higher degrees there might be some passing reference, but as to my knowledge, there are no references to Jesus, because it's not. As I said, there's this. Even in regular Freemasonry, which is a bit more stratified and inflexible, shall we say, you'll have Christians from all different denominations. You'll have Sikhs, you'll have Hindus, you'll have Buddhists. Freemasonry is alive and well in Turkey, so you have Muslim Freemasons. So no, the figure of there's no particular deity that appears. I mean, we make reference to the grand architect of the universe, and that can be understood in two different ways. In one way, it's a very comfortable way of addressing, the Godhead that will keep, that won't upset anybody because it will be all inclusive. But on the other hand, of course, it has also to do with, I think, representations of God in the Renaissance, a builder God, an architect God that has, perhaps more in tune with, with humanism and logos, but there are no references to Jesus. There are references, very important references. I mean, King Solomon is a very important figure in Masonic ritual, symbolizing wisdom, and Hiram Abiff. He's also a very, very important figure in Masonic ritual, but again, he's just an architect, a builder.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Darren, because I was going to ask you about Solomon. I mean, in your book, you talk about the Odes of Solomon. In the Nag Hammadi library, you have in the Testimony of Truth and the Apocalypse of Adam, Solomon is depicted as this sort of wild magician who's summoning demons to construct things, and kind of a mixed light he's represented. Why is Solomon so important in Freemasonry? Is it the temple? He's an archetype of wisdom, because again, it seems in ancient times he was a magician, notorious magician like Simon Magus.
Definitely. I mean, he's. I think King Solomon, obviously, there's one of the most important symbols in Freemasonry is the column that represents wisdom, and King Solomon represents wisdom, and obviously that's already from a biblical sense is there, but also King Solomon's building of the temple to the glory of God. It's a very powerful analogy. Again, we're going back to all the analogies that we use in Freemasonry from the construction world, from the building, operative, literally speaking. So we talk about building the temple within, and that's of course through wisdom, or again, we don't talk about Sophia, or there aren't any direct references to Gnosticism that I have seen that I could come up with. But, I definitely think there is a connection. And I think that the fact that Solomon has been used in other traditions as a magician, and he's seen in different lights, very different lights, that's also quite important. I mean, of all the prophets and, figures in the Bible, others could have been used for our rituals, and that maybe are more, akin to, our old Christian tradition. But it's King Solomon who's key in our rituals, and it's for those reasons.
Vance, you got a question?
Oh, I always have a question. But it's funny. The things I'm having in mind are just coming up as answers without me having to ask. Like the Rosicrucians and the Masons and so forth. One thing I was thinking of is, what would you, Darren, are you also a student of Theosophy? And if so, what would you say is the contrast between the if you could call it pure theosophical concepts and the Droit Humain, a Masonic society?
Well, I'm not. I'm not a study of, and in fact, I remember one of the first meetings I went to Droit Humain here in London, and the meeting was at the headquarters of the British Theosophical Society, and there was a picture of H.P. Blavatsky on the wall of the temple, and a small statue of a Buddha on one corner. But we were just using one of their rooms. But no, I mean, I think that the connection with Theosophy has waned somehow. I think the foundations of Theosophy, this interest in the Western mysteries and, shall we say, the occult, is what's kept Le Droit Humain in English-speaking countries focused on the esoteric and the spiritual. But I personally haven't found any strong links with Theosophy right now that, and I don't know that much. I mean, I do know that there's, when I was researching for the book, the lodge I'm in has in Le Droit Humain that I'm a member of is called Makeru Lodge. There's another lodge called Light of Amen-Ra. So there seems to be an Egyptian theme going, and I think that perhaps some of those theosophists that founded all these lodges, at the beginning of the 20th century, might have been influenced by Egyptian Freemasonry. I don't know if you've heard of the Memphis Mizraim rite founded by Count Cagliostro. Cagliostro, he used to believe in the existence of some ascended masters, which is what the Theosophists, I believe, also believed, and many other people from that period, like Aleister Crowley. Yes. I mean, he used to believe I think it was the White Brotherhood, or I can't remember now exactly. So it seems to be that sort of theme. Sorry?
Yes, the Great White Brotherhood.
That's right. Right. Yeah, so, but as I said, I'm not that clued up on Theosophy, and I suspect that some of the members are, but it's not, we, above anything else, I think we're a Masonic order, and we're in cahoots with lots of other Masonic orders throughout the world, and the main work we do is Masonic, and there's these foundations from Theosophy that are quite important, and I think have made us different, because, for example, in Spain, Le Droit Humain was also introduced by Theosophists at the beginning of the 20th century, but after the Civil War, when Franco started exterminating Freemasons, Freemasons then became very polarized and very sort of left-wing, and even to this day, they are still very much politicized, and I think that the esoteric side has sort of waned, and they've become more philosophical and perhaps socio-political. So, there are so many different, shall we say, factions or sections within Freemasonry, and it all depends on, the local culture, history, and so forth. But Theosophy, I think, is important in English-speaking countries, and I think in the US it's exactly the same, if I'm not mistaken. It's that they have left this esoteric and spiritual focus on the order, and that's what we all really, that's what we're looking for when we are doing our Masonic work.
Darren, why don't we get into a little bit of the history of Le Droit Humain, especially for the listener who might not be familiar with it. Wasn't it founded by the producer of the Beatles?
Really?
No, George Martin, right? Or the author George Martin from Game of Thrones.
You got me there.
Sorry, I had to say it.
In my French, I've been practicing my French. Of course, that's exactly what I was. Yeah, George Martin, but of course it's George Martin.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you got to go a bit French here.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got me there, Miguel. That was a good one. Well, I mean, George Martin is quite an interesting character. He was from a very rich, very well-to-do, affluent family in France. He was a senator. And in 1893, he founded Le Droit Humain in France in order to initiate women, which was a scandal, which was, something that, all his contemporaries were just, aghast. It was impossible. How can you initiate women? It's just, not the done thing. It started in 1882 with Maria de Rime, who was also, from a well-to-do family. She was, I suppose, a granddaughter of the French Revolution. Social activist, a feminist, anti-clerical, and women rights, and very, very politicized. And she was initiated by a lodge called the Freethinkers of Bec in France. And but of course, the remaining, the Masonic establishment didn't allow her to progress any further, and I'm not sure what happened to that lodge. So George Martin, who had been present at her initiation in 1882, in 1893 founded Le Droit Humain and started initiating women. And although this was a lodge initially that belonged to a regular order, the Grand Symbolic Scottish Lodge of France, it then became a complete separate order. And it grew gradually. And Annie Besant, the theosophist, and Fabian, and women rights activist, she was initiated in France in 1902, I believe. Through another theosophist, Francesca Arundel. And she decided to, she brought Le Droit Humain to Great Britain, and it gradually, the order started, grew and grew. There was members like writer Charles William Leadbeater. The order was then transported to the States, Australia, and between 1914 and 1939, it grew considerably. And I mean, and that's one of the distinctive features of Le Droit Humain, that it's an international order with a presence in more than 50 countries.
See, Miguel, it was Fabian, not the Beatles.
Yeah, Fabian. I know Fabian.
Yes,
the guy with the big quid. Yeah.
Go ahead, Vince. I'm sure you have a question that doesn't have to do with 60s rock and roll.
I do. 60s rock and roll. We can do another one on that one.
Well, it does have to do with Fabian, though, and it's this. Is there any connection between international socialism and Le Droit Humain at this time in history?
Well, no. The answer is no. Most definitely in Great Britain, the answer is no. I mean, there's people, again, with there's total religious tolerance and diversity in the Le Droit Humain British Federation, and it's exactly the same with politics. But we don't discuss politics or religion, so there'll be people that belong to all different parties and people that don't have any political alliances whatsoever. Perhaps on the European continent, I don't think there are any direct... No, there aren't any direct connections with international socialism, but I would imagine that many members are leaning towards, towards the left. But as I said, in the English, in English-speaking countries, because of our particular history and politics, there aren't any links with international socialism. I mean, it's just, of course, that all the founding members, the turn of the 19th century, were of that disposition, of those, quite politicized, and I suppose they had to be in those difficult times. So Annie Besant was involved in, she was involved in all sorts of political activities. She helped the match girls. I don't know if you've heard about these girls working in the factories making matches, and there was no, obviously, health and safety of any kind, and they used to get their jaws completely disfigured through this disease that they caught from working with the matches. And she fought for their rights, and she also had some problem in relation to contraception. She defended the in the 19th century. I mean, imagine that must have been gone down like a bomb.
Yeah.
So, but that's the individuals, really, and that was, I don't think that was never brought into the organization, certainly not as anything official. So no, that there is no connection with politics whatsoever.
So no worries about the Masons taking over the world, right? It's not a global conspiracy to dominate the world.
We've managed to stop the electric car because it was conflicting with our. Well, we have got interested in the Middle East, as you know, but and now we're trying to get Donald to give Kim a kick up the backside. But let's see what happens.
Always messing around. Did you ever see that Simpsons skit with the stone cutters and the song and everything else?
That was my inspiration, Miguel.
That was
I wish I was creative. I wish I was original, but yeah, no, that's an old one, isn't it? It's a great one. I love that one. My kids love it.
Yes. Who made Steve Gutenberg a star? That's a big question, huh?
Yes.
Before we get into more of the traditional Freemasonry and your views on it, because it's always fun to speculate and so, and we can get more into Freemasonry as the big boogeyman of history that seems to be coming back these days, especially in a lot of alt-right circles, because we got to blame somebody. But you say in your book that, again, we're talking speculating on Freemasonry, and you might say in circles about Freemasonry being a direct link to the mystery religions. But you say that's not the case. It's something more subtle, more nuanced.
Yes, I think that to say that we are the direct heirs of the Western mysteries or the mystery religions would be a bit far fetched. I mean, I can't see that there's a direct connection, but I do think that since the dawn of humanity, we've always needed ritual somehow. The Eleusinian mysteries. The ultimate goal was to obtain more crops, and through this, they got their initiates into the mysteries, had to go through tests and trials and all sorts of tribulations in order to experience some sort of cathartic experience that would, produce an increase in crops. So they believed. The Pythagorean mystery schools, in order to obtain their knowledge, which there was religious, there was some religious knowledge, mystical, scientific or proto-scientifical, mathematical, of course. They had to go through all these trials and tests and so on. So I think that, and in Freemasonry there are lots of similarities. We've got the Pythagoreans had their own tokens and words by which they could identify each other. We do the same. We've got the same. And when you're being initiated, you have to go through these tests and trials, which are, they're not, nothing terrible, but it's certainly you're shaken up, and it's you're taken out of your comfort zone. You're taken out of the rat race, and out of the mundane day-to-day humdrum, and set in a very unusual and setting, which will unsettle you, of course. So I think that it's the ritual side of the mysteries and of Freemasonry that's most, that's the commonality. That's where both meet, I think.
And the connection to the Knights Templar, tell us about that. That's another, of course, juicy question people want to know about. Absolutely.
Well, you see, the Knight Templars, again, I mean, very strange. A monastic order that was at the same time a military order, and again, people that had travelled, in a stratified society like the Middle Ages. These are knights from Northern Europe. There wasn't a Europe, obviously, no northern kingdoms in what's Europe today. Traveling to the Middle East, I mean, that must have been a culture shock in capital letters. And then there's all these rumours and speculations, of course, that they mixed with, with Jews and Muslims and alchemists. I mean, Muslims at that period in time were very interested in alchemy, and there was all these hidden arts. And so, they were exposed to different cultures, different ideas, and, probably different esoteric practices as well. And then they become this, the first bank of Europe, don't they? The first international bank. And the Pope and the King of France owe them so much money that they decide to kill them all. Wouldn't that be great if we could do that with credit cards?
Oh, my God. And bankers.
That's right. Yeah. So, but of course, the theory posits that, of course, the Grand Master Jacques de Molay was burnt on the stake, and so were many of his officers. But a number of Knight Templars managed to escape to Scotland, where they mixed, allegedly, according to these rumours, with operative lodges of Freemasons. And now these are builders in the literal sense, who had their own rituals for admitting, master builders to do the work. So they had to. They consider their work to be sacred. They were building cathedrals mainly, weren't they? So, so then you've got all these different currents, and then I think the theories suggests that the Knight Templars and all their knowledge that they brought from the Middle East influenced these operative lodges of Freemasons that welcomed them when they were escaping, and from there modern speculative Freemasonry was born. But again, I mean, I think that there's nothing solid really. I think it's it's one of those open questions really. I think.
Vance.
Oh, I have another one. This one is a little gem of a question, and it concerns the Pearl of Great Price. What can you tell us, Darren, about the Pearl of Great Price and what it represents in the order, the Brotherhood?
The Pearl of Great Price. I mean, isn't that the name of a Gnostic gospel?
That's what I was thinking.
It is. But I believe it figures in some Masonic rituals as well.
Well, you see, it might. I mean, there are so many Masonic rituals that I have to say that I'm sorry I haven't come across that one. What a disappointment I am. I'm sorry, but no, I haven't. But the thing is, of course, you've got to remember, in the States, you've got your own rituals. I believe that most regular Freemasons, perhaps your uncle, worked with the Preston Webb ritual. Now, in regular Freemasonry, I used to work with Taylor's working, which was a working of the emulation ritual. There's logic ritual, West End ritual. We practice the Lauderdale ritual, which is based on the Dharma ritual that Annie Besant created. So there are so many different rituals and workings that there's a huge diversity. But I thought I saw my ignorance, but I haven't come across that one.
I thought I saw you mention it in the book. That's why I wrote the question down. But unfortunately, I don't have the book open in front of me, so I can't tell you.
That's an expression that Julian, the co-author, used to refer to Freemasonry in general, and he probably got that from the Gnostic Gospel, But it was just the description, just a beautiful metaphor.
Very good.
He's very poetic, Julian.
It is, and for the listener that's in the Acts of Thomas, you'll find that great little story about the prince coming down to Egypt and forgetting his identity and having to take the pearl from this monster. And it's a great allegory and a beautiful one.
I remember it. I have read it. It's not the very long one either. And it's good that Vance asked that question, because that's very interesting actually. Because in a way that could be an analogy of what Freemasonry is. You're looking for your own identity through Masonic method. The Masonic method is that really. It's I want to know who I am, so I can know what's I don't want to get lost in the world and in the day-to-day rat race. I know I keep using that expression, but it's I think we all get lost, don't we? We all seem to get lost, and we don't know who we are. And the Masonic method is really a search for an identity, and I think it's a good analogy actually, very good one.
Yeah, the St. George and the Dragon, I think, is a parallel to that.
Joseph Campbell would have a field day. So did Carl Jung. He talked a lot about the dragon metaphor and all that. And it's very interesting. What about you, Vance? I mean, when I hear the architect in Freemasonry, of course, I always flinch because I'm into Gnosticism, and I think of, again, the demiurge and the architect from the Matrix. But obviously, the architect, Darren, was named after because Freemasonry was very deistic. So what do you think, Vance, about the architect? And maybe Darren can let us know.
Yeah, this is a question that did come up in my mind, because when you have an order, you have law and limitation, and the order has to come together, right, Darren? And it has to stay together. And I remember a quote from the book saying you have to have concord as well as individuality. So I chafe at the idea of, order and obedience and so forth as a Gnostic. But on the other hand, I see the value in an organization that brings together people and reminds them of who they are, gives them a framework. So I was going to ask Darren, what the situation is with that dichotomy. How does the order keep itself alive and vital and keep itself from being overbearing and dogmatic, whereas at the same time, keeping the order together?
It's a very good question, and it's and I think it's it can be a problem. I mean, the thing is, of course, we can be seen as being a bunch of sanctimonious farts, but really, there is a lot of fun. I mean, there's no there is this, of course, we call Masonic, a Masonic order is also known as an obedience. I mean, that's off-putting from the start. You know, that's my obedience. You know,
no.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But these are just, I think that the jargon can be sometimes misleading. You know, and there is, you know, there is nothing like that really. I mean, I mean, I was in a lodge meeting in Spain last weekend, and the lodge meeting started at 10 o'clock. You know, so the lodge is closed. We do the ritual is performed, and there's a discussion. We read pieces of architecture, which are, you know, sort of essays or things that people write about different subjects, and then people debate them. Then we close the lodge, and I went out for a few drinks with some brothers and sisters, and I went to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's you know, there is a great deal of fun as well, and it's not. Unfortunately, as I said, the jargon it can be quite off-putting, but there is. It's not. You know, it's very. And if you ever wanted to leave Freemasonry, you just leave, and that's it. There's no. You know, there's nothing sectarian or you know, dogmatic as such. I mean, the regular Freemasonry is dogmatic because you've got to believe in a revealed God. Only men are allowed. There's only one jurisdiction. You can't have any contact with anybody else, with any other, Masonically, I mean, you know, with any other obediences. But in liberal Freemasonry, that goes out the window. You have people from all different, you know, it's completely diverse. And what unites us really is the love for the ritual, you know, performing those rituals and you know, debating and discussing all these subjects that in our normal day-to-day life we wouldn't. But yes, I definitely can see that the jargon, the Masonic jargon, can be quite, you know, bombastic as well. You know, I mean, the 18th degree, for example, the title, once you're perfected into this degree, as it's called perfected, you become a Prince Rosquar, a Knight of the Pelican and I can't really remember to be honest with you, but you know, something to put on your business card. You know, Prince Rosquar, Prince of the Pelican and the Eagle and the Sword, and you know, I don't really pay that much attention to the you know, these are just traditional, and of course they all stem from the 18th century when, you know, people would take half an hour to tell you something that we could just, you know, say in 5 minutes. So yes, I would say don't be misled by the by Masonic jargon. That's definitely, that it can be off-putting, but it's no reflection of what really happens.
Yeah. Do you have a title? I was wondering.
No, I mean I'm just I'm a master. Well, I'm a past master because I was a master in my former lodge. So when I'm in lodge and I'm working, I will be a past master. You know, that's, you know, there's inside the lodge, there's different offices, different jobs that have to be done. So, you know, but that's it. Outside of the lodge, everybody's a Mason, a brother or sister. That's it. End of story. You know, there's no more. You know, and all the titles and all the higher degrees. The people with the higher degrees are the people that work the hardest. Those are the people that give all their time to the order. But as I say, you know, so for example, the number one in the Masonic orders. I mean, in the regular Freemasonry, for example, the number one is his title is the Grand Master. So we say the main representative. In our order, the title is the most puissant commander, Grand Commander. Sorry. Again, you know, it sounds, oh my God, what's that? Which a bit of a mouthful, but you know, but it's just the title that, as I said, stems from this old-fashioned language from the 18th century, and basically, and the person that's you know, that bears that title is a person that's working extremely hard for the order, and you know, on all levels, you know, traveling and meeting other orders and promoting the values of Freemasonry. So, as I said, the language can be a bit of a barrier, but it shouldn't be misleading.
Does that title reflect any Besant? Did you say the most Besant master?
No, Puissant. It's French, and you know my.
Puissant.
Yeah, sorry. My yes, I have a great French accent. If my father's listening, he can speak French. He'll be having a bit of a laugh.
Both George Martins would be ashamed of you, Darren. Both the French and the producer. So,
Doc Martin, did you say? Did you say Doc Martin? Yeah. No, most puissant Grand Commander. Sorry. Yeah. No. So puissant as in. Yes. But as I said, jargon, mere jargon, nothing else. It's a tradition, a bit like the handshakes and the secret words. I mean, these are tradition. The real secret of Freemasonry is each Freemason's individual and unique experience. How these rituals, and of course, it's not only a personal experience, internal, something that you internalize, looking for an identity or a path in life. It's also a very sociable. It has it's a fraternity at the end of the day, a fraternal society. So there is a lot of social, a big social aspect to it as well. So no, it's as I said, the jargon and many of the things are just carried out through tradition, and but have no meaning or bearing outside of the lodge or outside of a particular ceremony or ritual.
Do you have the Shriners like we do over here?
No, we don't. No, that's strange. I was wondering. That's a typical American construct. The Shriners. Yes. No, that we don't have them here. No. But I mean, the Shriners are mainly dedicated to a charity, aren't they? They do huge amounts of charity work. Yes, and it's
there's a hospital they run.
Yeah, no, I don't. I've always wondered. No, there are no Shriners in in England or in anywhere in Europe. No, it's that's a typical American invention. It's great. They've got these little cars, haven't they? And they wear these Turkish pets. Yeah.
Yes, that's really cool. In fact, a good friend of mine in amateur radio was a Shriner all his life. So as long as I knew him, he was a cool guy.
Those guys must have loads of fun. I mean, I can see, I'm sure that, apart from the great work that they do, I'm sure they have. And that shows you as I said, that we're not a bunch of sanctimonious farts. I mean, there's loads of, there is a great social aspect in Freemasonry, and we're all normal people like anybody else. So, there's no, it's just that, of course, you read a book on Freemasonry, and you read all these titles, the most puissant Grand Commander, or the Prince Rosquar, or the Pelican and the Sword, and of course it can be a bit off-putting, but again, pure tradition, nothing else.
And Darren, talking to you, obviously we're getting into a lot of Gnosticism, of what your experience in the self-knowledge, the breaking away from the rat race, the experience with higher powers and expanded consciousness and all that. But what is, going to the pagan cousin of Gnosticism, what would you say are the Hermetic influences on the tenets of Freemasonry, and as well as Droit Humain?
I think the best way I could try to attempt to explain this is that there's an American Freemason, Kirk McNulty. I'm not sure if you're aware of him. He's written a number of books, and he's got a very interesting theory about this, and he sees that Freemasonry as being a ritualized code of the values and ideals of the Renaissance, which of course include the Hermetic, revival with Pico della Mirandela and all these, and the discovery of the Corpus Hermeticum, or and all these currents of Renaissance magic and so forth, John Dee, and I think that that's what's within Freemasonry. I mean, the Hermetic side, the lodge is closed. We use a specific language. We've created our own language. We are trying to find some truths about ourselves and the world around us. But for that, we need some degree of introspection and of personal study and group study, of course, which is what Freemasonry is as well. And I think that the Hermetic undercurrent is very, very important, and there's crossovers with alchemy, and I mean Freemasonry. I see personally, that's my view. I mean, again, anything I say today here is only my personal opinion. I don't speak for any Masonic order or group of Freemasons, but I think that Freemasonry is definitely one of the remnants of the Western mystery tradition. That's still ongoing in the way that it was originally set up. The official date is 1717, but, probably since the late 17th century. So I think that we definitely are part of the Hermetic tradition, no doubt.
Indeed, indeed. All right, and to end, Darren, if somebody wants to get more information or even join your fraternity, what should they do besides sacrifice a copy of Sgt. Pepper's or something like that? What can they do?
Well, I can give you. I'll give you my bank details right now.
Yes, of course.
Make some payments.
Yeah,
welcome.
Yeah, your Nigerian assistants will take care of that.
That's right. Yes. How did you know? I think. Well, I think the easiest thing to do is to just, it's at the end of our book we give a list of all the websites. But the easiest thing to do, if you're in the States, if you just type in Droit Humain, which is LEDROIT. HUMAIN, and then your state or region, something will definitely come up in Google, because all lodges have websites, or the American Federation. That's where same goes for any other country. If anybody has any questions about the book, or about Freemasonry, or about the Droit Humain in general, or anything that we can help with, there's an email we have that and anybody's welcome to write. It's morelight975 at yahoo.com, or as you say, .cam.
You got me. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I think that's all the time we have today. First, thanks, Vance Moondog, for showing up and taking us away. And thank you. And thank you very much, Darren, for coming on Aeon Byte. And best of luck with your new book, More Light.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Thank you very much, Vance. It's been great. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
And there you have it, my beloved truth seekers. Darren Lorente Bull on his new book, More Light, Today's Freemasonry for Men and Women. We get even deeper in our bonus section, getting deeper and deeper, like that song from Madonna, into the secret rituals of the Freemasons, deeper into Freemasons' relation to Gnosticism and other ancient mysteries, and deeper indeed into other metaphysic topics, as well as the big question on whether or not the Freemasons are ruling the world and part of the elite's thrust to subjugate the underclass. I think you'll be very surprised at the answers. It's deep and it's really horror show stuff, so join by becoming a member. 11 years, and I wonder if there is another 11 years. There must be some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief. I hope you have begun finding the way out of here at Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio. I'll keep the lights on, as I said in the introduction, and Hypatia will escape the mob, and you will find in the end that you are a living archetype, and Keck will offer up his treasures to you. Hello and goodbye as always.
Who controls the British crown? Who keeps the metric system down? We do. Who leads Atlantis off the maps? Who keeps the Martians under wraps? We do. Who holds back the electric car? Who makes Steve Gutenberg a star? We do. Who robbed Kate Fish of their sight? Who rigged every Oscar?